Siemens Corporation laid off workers who were making wind turbine parts and put the plant in Iowa and Kansas into what they now call, they refer to as hibernation. I hibernated in Iowa for a while, but I never bought it. The problem was too many people are working, or working people are working.
This is the Weather Channel, currently the 83rd most popular channel on TV, which garners 0.002% of the total television audience. Recently, they conducted a softball interview with resident Joe Biden regarding the so-called climate crisis, as if any of that could possibly improve their ratings.
Mr. President, you call climate change a code red for humanity. The World Health Organization said it will cause an additional 250,000 deaths a year starting in 2030. Are you prepared to declare a national emergency with respect to climate change?
I've already done that.
What?
We've passed a $368 billion climate control facility.
What the hell is a climate control facility, and why did it cost $360 billion?
So you've already declared that national emergency?
Well, in the practice, you got a bug on you.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. So you've already declared that national emergency?
Practically speaking, yes.
Yeah.
The president has not yet declared a national climate emergency.
Man, you know things are bad when the Weather Channel is forced to fact-check Joe Biden.
What do you say to states like Texas that just passed a law to strip the ability of local authorities to mandate water breaks for their workers?
I think it's cruel. I think it's outrageous. I think it's consistent with what the governor down there is doing.
Joe Biden and Stephanie Abrams are referring to HB 2127, a bill that was signed into law that apparently bans water breaks for workers in the state of Texas. Which is weird because when you look at the actual text of the bill, it doesn't even mention water breaks, let alone banning them. Besides, OSHA guidelines already dictate that employers provide a lot of cool water to workers close to the work area, and that at least 1 pint of water per hour is needed. And they suggest to workers that on a hot day, you should drink plenty of fluids, drink often, and before you're thirsty, drink water every 15 minutes. Of course, the water break lie from the Biden administration and the Democrat Party is being propagated by left-wing media, just like the lies claiming that Georgia had plans to close their polling places at 5 p.m., or that it's a crime to provide water to voters, or that they're banning books. In fact, according to the official White House transcript of a recent Biden campaign reception at a private residence in Maine, Biden said the following: "Did you ever think you'd be in a country right now at your age and your circumstance where we're banning books? I just read, my wife wrote a book, not about politics at all. They took it out of libraries in Georgia." No one is banning Dr. Jill Biden's books. And Joe Biden didn't read that anywhere because it didn't happen. It's a lie. Much like everything that comes out of his f***ing mouth.
Look, I was raised in a town called Claymont, Delaware.
Okay.
When you got up in the morning, my mother would drive us to the little Catholic school we went to about 3/4 of a mile up the Philadelphia Pike. The first day of frost, you turn on the windshield wiper, there'd be an oil slick.
So there was an oil slick on his family's windshield. And this is a very dubious claim that Joe Biden has made in the past.
I grew up in a place called Claymont, Delaware, which has more oil refineries than Houston, Texas had in its region, just across the line in Pennsylvania. And all the prevailing winds were our way. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening. You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window.
So to recap, Biden claims that the prevailing winds blew oil from refineries that reside in the next state over onto his family's car windshield. And for some reason, this was only noticeable in the fall and winter. But if that were true, certainly you'd see it all year round, right? I mean, and you wouldn't just see it on windshields. It would be everywhere.
That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer.
Yeah, remember that one? Of course Biden never had cancer. He is the cancer.
Let's talk Gen Z, because they're going to play a big role in the next presidential election. And many of them are angry about the 7,000 oil and gas permits you approved since you've been in office. You promised no new drilling on federal land or offshore. Can you tell Gen Z that you haven't broken your promise?
Yes, because the courts overruled me. The court said I couldn't do it.
And the thing is, he knew he couldn't stop oil and gas leases without the approval of Congress. But when his administration tried to stop all oil and gas leases on federal land, he was breaking the law because Congress requires the federal government to do so. He knew that he was breaking the law, but he promised voters anyway. And Stephanie Abrams just nods her head like the Democrat simp that she is.
I wanted to stop all drilling on the East Coast and the West Coast and in the Gulf, but I lost in court. But we're still pushing. We're still pushing really very hard. Look,
Biden's illegal war on drilling for oil and natural gas is ultimately a threat to the United States national security. What happens to our military when we stop drilling for oil? Are we going to convert our F-35s to electric? Are we going to power the Abrams M1A2 using the power of rainbows? Of course not.
every vehicle in America by 2050 is going to be electric vehicle. By 2030, 50% are electric vehicles, saving billions of gallons of not only not burning oil, but also the environment's going to be saved.
So we're going to save billions of gallons of oil by not burning oil. The man can barely talk, but he thinks he's going to save the environment. Good luck with that. And keep in mind that a modern car is comprised of as much as 20% plastic. And that plastic comes from, wait for it, oil and natural gas. So if the United States stops drilling, then that means that we have to rely on foreign sources for our oil and natural gas just to make plastic. But Joe Biden couldn't care less, just as long as his friends in the climate crisis industry can line their pockets with a small fortune over a manufactured crisis.
How can you make the power grid more resilient?
3 ways. Number one, the power grid is what people say, not my neighborhood.
Why is Joe Biden breathing like he just ran a 5K?
Number one, the power grid, that electricity is going through these lines. When storms come and knock them down, the forest catch fires. There's 3 things we have to do. Number one, strengthen the power grid. When you build these things back up, build them much more sturdy than they are now.
So how do we make the power grid more resilient? By strengthening it. Makes sense to me. What's your problem?
But secondly, spend the money to go underground. When you go underground, put them in pipes, it costs more, but it's fundamentally safer.
But depending on the region, undergrounding power lines is impractical. First, the cost. By some estimates, it can cost 10 times more to install underground than regular traditional power lines. Furthermore, finding and repairing overhead wire breaks can be accomplished in hours, while underground repairs can take days or even weeks. And if there's a power outage, because these lines are still susceptible to floods, earthquakes, and lightning, technicians will need to bring in earth-moving equipment to get to those lines to fix them.
And the third thing is to make sure that when we're doing this, we are cleaning the floor of the forest. If you ride up here, you'll see a lot of places, you'll see, dead timber lying around. Well, lightning starts storms too.
What?
Lightning starts storms too.
So the biggest thing we're doing is making sure that you have greater resiliency.
So again, the question was, how do you make the power grid more resilient? And Biden's answer is to make sure that there's greater resiliency. I don't know who's running the country, but it ain't Joe Biden.
Let's move on to solar panels because they aren't cheap. Fewer than 5% of American homes have them, and it's still easier just to get your energy from the grid. How do you convince Americans that the hard thing to do might be the right thing to do for the environment?
We're getting them tax credits to do it. That's what they do. You can afford to do it.
Joe Biden's like, you can afford it. It's just money. Now, the biggest reasons why people aren't installing solar is because it's costly and impractical. You see, solar panels convert sunlight into electricity, but the sun does not shine at night when people get home from work. Which means that if you want 100% of your electricity to come from solar, you'll have to purchase a system that includes battery storage. And that means you're going to have to shell out a small fortune. But even with a 30% tax credit from the federal government, you'll still spend tens of thousands of dollars on a system where you probably won't even break even on your investment before your system's warranty expires, which explains why fewer than 5% of Americans have solar. And for the record, I'm not pro or anti-solar. All I'm saying is that for most people, it's not worth it.
Is it the responsibility of the U.S. to protect migrants who might be fleeing extreme weather in their countries?
Look, I think the United States should do everything it can to help people. For example, one of the things we're doing is we're providing for changing the environment, the physical structures in the countries which they come from.
Wait, we're providing for physical structures? Like roads and bridges? Is he serious? Why is that our responsibility?
So they have better lighting.
Stop. What does providing for better lighting in other countries have anything to do with extreme weather? What the hell is he talking about?
So they have better lighting. They have more secure, for example, you have so many lead pipes all across America and throughout the country.
So we're going to protect migrants fleeing extreme heat by replacing lead pipes all across America and also throughout the country, which I think is the same thing.
All across America and throughout the country.
81 million votes my ass. Anyway, that's it for now. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run. Be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. If there is next time.